In May 10, 1986, photographer Andrew J. Russell's East and West shaking hands at living last row photo. Two giant steam locomotives representing the Central Pacific Railroad and the Union Pacific Railroad respectively, East and West closed, marking the official completion of the first transcontinental railroad in the United States. To commemorate this great feat, Leland Stanford held a silver-plated hammer and smashed a legendary golden spike into the rail. This legendary golden road stud reads, "May God continue the unity of our country, as this railroad unites the two great oceans of the world." Since then, the railway crossed the North American continent and connecting the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean has been completed and open to traffic. The dangerous journey that used to last 3 to 6 months now only takes 1 week. Not only that, but the railroad has revitalized the scarred America. In this important event in the history of modern American industrialization, tens of thousands of Chinese were called to participate in the most difficult construction of the Central Pacific Railway. But in the photos of the celebration, there are no Chinese people. Are the two ghost-like illusory figures in the lower left corner the Chinese laborers who once participated in the railway construction? Why did these Chinese pioneers who built the United States leave their homes and become pioneers of American frontiers and cities? Why do some people say that without the Chinese, the railway would not have been built? In the 19th century, China was not only suffering from foreign aggression from the Opium War, but also the internal turmoil of the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom made the people miserable. The Red Turban Rebellion that broke out in Guangdong Province and the 13 years Punki-Hakan clan wars became the most important issue for Chinese immigrants. Distrust of the Chinese people at that time began to look overseas for life. Some of them became laborers for American railroads. At the same time, Americans in the 19th century, with the inspiration of Manifest Destiny, won the American-Mexican War, expanded the land of California. The ensuing gold rush in California, business operations on the east and west coast, and the outbreak of the Civil War made the United States urgently need to build a transcontinental railway, and the urgent need for railway construction labor also became the pull of Chinese supply to the United States. In 1845, a businessman named Asa Whitney first began to imagine the railway. In 1862, President Lincoln approved the Pacific Railway Act. The bill stipulates that the government will donate state-owned land and subsidize funds, and the Union Pacific Railroad Company and the Central Pacific Railroad Company will jointly undertake the construction of the Transcontinental Pacific Railway. The railway was built eastward from Sacramento, California. The bill did not stipulate the connection point built by the two companies. The longer the company built, the more benefit it would get. However, because the Central Pacific Railway Company straddles the Sierra Ridge and Nevada, the terrain is complex, the weather is harsh, the construction is difficult, and the labor force is insufficient, so the construction progress is extremely low. In desperation, Charles Crocker of the Central Pacific Railroad first proposed to try workers from China. Although some people think that the Chinese are too weak to be competent for the work of building the railway, after 12 hours of labor, the Chinese workers have achieved very surprising results, which has changed the Pacific Railway Company's view of the Chinese workers. Later, they went on to hire 3,000 Chinese laborers, and the effect was equally satisfactory. The first obstacle in front of Chinese laborers is the bloomer cut. The workers insisted on digging a passage about 250 meters long and nearly 20 meters deep with shovels and black powder, wheelbarrows and shovels, and gnawed bones with ants on high soils and rocks that were not suitable for tunnel construction. More than 20,000 cubic meters of earth and rock. In the summer of 1865, the railroad builders encountered a greater challenge, which was to blast a 3 to 4 mile long railway at a height of 366 meters above the American River, in the steep Sierra Nevada at about 75 degrees, winding roadbed. Workers level and cleared trees, rocks, and other obstructions from nearly vertical cliffs and blasted a curving roadbed with hundreds of barrels of black powder. There are different opinions in various travel notes and reports on how the Chinese laborers built the roadbed at Cape Horn. Isabella Albert recording her travelogue, a lady's living Rocky Mountain, down on a single track, sometimes carried on a narrow edge excavated from a mountainside by men lowered from top in baskets, overhanging ravines from 2,000 to 3,000 feet deep. The monster train snaked its way upwards. At the other, where nothing was to be seen but a long cabin with few Chinamen hanging about it, but where trains on the side of the ravines pointed to a gold country above and below. In the Great Transcontinental Railroad Guide, there are also reports of Chinese hanging on ropes on the Cape Horn Railway from time to time. From the photos in the past, we can see the extremely difficult and dangerous working and living environment when the Chinese railway workers build Cape Horn. Chinese workers need to hang themselves in the basket, lower them from the cliffs, and then cut holes in the cliffs and insert black powder. After igniting the black powder, it needs to be hosted away immediately, otherwise there will be a risk of falling off the cliffs or being blasted to death. After completing the construction of road at Cape Horn in an incredible way, the bigger and more arduous challenge was waiting for Chinese laborers, which was to cross several Nevada mountains and dig 15 tunnels at an altitude of 6,230 feet. The most difficult thing to overcome in the process of crossing the Silver Ridge is a mountain tunnel with a total length of 506 meters, a width of 16 feet, and a height of 23 feet. There are 30 to 40 workers at the entrance of each tunnel, and they use steel drills and hammering groups or 3 to tap rocks to develop the railway. In order to dig through the tunnel as soon as possible, the railway engineers came up with an extreme measure. In addition to excavating opposite ends of the tunnel, they ordered the workers to dig a shaft from the middle point of the tunnel, and the workers at the bottom of the shaft dig from the middle, dig outward. But the granite of Sierra Ridge and the Sierra Nevada is so hard that each team worked for 8 hours to drill 3 small holes 2.5 inches in diameter and 2.5 inches in deep. In the memory of A.P. Partridge, he said, with the heavy fall of snow, one old barn collapsed and killed 4 Chinamen. A good many were frozen to death. About 9 a.m. next morning, we saw something under a tree by the side of the road, its shape resembling the shape of a man. We stopped it and found a frozen Chinaman. In order to prevent the occurrence of avalanches and affect the construction of the railway, the Chinese workers built a Chinese wall with rocks beside the tunnel. Under such difficult construction conditions, Chinese railway workers were not treated fairly. Tunnel engineer Gillis said that the wages of Chinese workers in charge of excavating the tunnels are US $30 to $35 per month, and they are responsible for their own board and lodging. The working hours are longer. Therefore, the Chinese began a general peaceful strike that lasted 8 days. The strike was suppressed by Charles Crocker. The Chinese workers did not win and returned to their job to promote the construction of the railway. The construction of the railway not only attracted a large number of Chinese laborers to open up the railway, but also promoted the establishment of new town frontiers, bringing wholehearted vitality to the development of the city. 2 of the representatives are Reno, Winnemucca, and Elk. The former was still a desolate desert when the Chinese workers first came, but now it is already a resort. Winnemucca is where the Chinese and their families settled, which form its own prosperous Chinatown. Elk, along with the construction of the railway, changed it from a temporary place of residence to a city. In addition to all the hardships in the construction of the railway and the establishment of new towns, the Chinese laborers also completed the construction of a 10-kilometer railway in a day, breaking the record of 6 kilometers a day set by the Union Pacific Railway Company. This has also become a miracle in the history of railway construction. On May 10, 1869, done! A telegram with only one English word was sent to Washington, announcing that one of the 7 industrial wonders of the world since the Industrial Revolution, the first Pacific Railway across the American continent was completed, and this condenses the sweat, wisdom, and life of tens of thousands of Chinese workers. At the peak of CPR construction, the Chinese numbered 10,000 to 50,000. Between 1865 and 1869, their total number may have reached 20,000, accounting for 90% of the workforce in most construction projects. Regrettably, due to various historical reasons, the Chinese laborers who participated in the railway construction were once shrouded in the mist of history, and the Central Pacific Railway Company did not even report the death toll. According to various engineering data and reports, some historians estimate about 2,000 or more Chinese dead during the construction of the railway. Silent spike used to be people's overall evaluation of Chinese laborers, but now, spike is no longer silent. The history of Chinese railway workers has been unnerved again. There will no longer be people burying the dust of history, no longer ghosts in photos, but the real shapers of history and pioneers of the frontier.